The federal forces deployed right on time while the sky was still immersed in cold gray. A quiet street in North Seattle became the starting point for one of the region's most serious operations. The two-story home of Dr. Lawrence Whitlock, director of a major hospital, was chosen as the priority target after financial, logistical, and encrypted communication analyses converged on the same conclusion. The property was not just the residence of a renowned doctor, but the anchor point of an organized crime network. The agents approached in a tight formation, avoiding all dead zones. A battering ram breached the door with a single thrust, clearing the way for the entry team to move directly into the foyer. The house initially bore all the hallmarks of a successful family: wall-hung pictures, diplomas, and honorary certificates. However, that meticulous appearance only existed on the surface. The federal forces' mission was not to evaluate the exterior, but to find the layers of Operation Whitlock had concealed for years. From the living room, agents fanned out to secure each area. The entire upper floor was confirmed safe within minutes, with no sign of resistance. But attention immediately shifted to the basement door. Signs of altered pressure and the smell of sterile materials indicated that the area was not a conventional storage space. When the technical team cut the lock, a narrow passage appeared, leading to where the true nature of this home was revealed. Right beneath the facade of an ordinary life was a sophisticated criminal system. The agent in charge of inventory immediately confirmed 50 pounds of heroin, packed in industrial compression blocks, lined up against the wall for easy transport. Next to it were crates of weapons, including short-barreled rifles, modified handguns, and ammunition boxes marked with symbols the federal forces had previously encountered in cartel takedown operations in southwestern border states. The arrangement proved that the organizer was not just collecting goods but maintaining a stable transit point. However, the most impactful discovery was in a locked room at the end of the hallway. When the steel door was opened, a complete surgical suite was revealed. The steel table was spotless, a surgical light hung from the ceiling, and medical instruments were arranged on trays with the precision of a professional facility. This was not a place for treating ordinary patients. The structure of the operating room suggested it was designed to perform procedures requiring secrecy, avoiding all audits or medical oversight. The combination of medical supplies and criminal activity in the same space created a picture completely contrary to the image Whitlock had built in the Seattle community. The crime scene analysis team assessed this as a multi-purpose operational center, serving not only drug storage but also the processing of high-value human and material assets for the cartel. These conclusions were not drawn from speculation but from clear evidence. Surgical instruments ready for use, a compact sterilization system, and non-labeled patient records with internal codes matching files found on Whitlock's server hours earlier. With the basement fully secured, the commanding officers confirmed that this was not the end, but only the beginning. The network operating behind Whitlock extended far beyond the scope of one individual. The underground operating room, the weapons cache, and the volume of heroin discovered proved that Seattle was not just a consumption hub, but a strategic link in a cross-border cartel's supply chain. The operation, therefore, shifted to the next phase, tracking the entire financial, personnel, and transportation structure. Whitlock was running in the shadows. Immediately after the basement was secured, the financial analysis and digital forensics teams began retrieving data seized from the server, encrypted hard drives, and documents hidden behind the surgical area. The results not only confirmed initial suspicions but exposed the entire operational framework of a system designed to look like charitable medical activity but was, in fact, a logistical pipeline for a transnational cartel. Financial agents identified 23 shell companies registered in Nevada, Belize, and Panama. These entities had no staff, no employment contracts, and no operational reports, yet they possessed a cash flow worth millions of dollars under the guise of medical equipment funds, humanitarian aid, and hospital supplies procurement. When each payment was delayered, all of them traced back to sources linked to intermediary groups in Mexico and Venezuela. The cyclical and fractional distribution of funds showed the system was built for the long term, not an improvised criminal model. Whitlock leveraged his position within the hospital to cover his operations. His community support, international outreach, and equipping under-resourced medical facilities programs were, in reality, the perfect legal cover to legitimize the cash flow. A portion of the funds passed through non-profit organizations Whitlock controlled, while the rest was concealed under specialized import contracts, the kind of documents that local audit or inspection units often lack the expertise to spot irregularities in. Delving into the encrypted mail system, federal forces found a series of messages indicating that Whitlock was not only managing the finances but directly coordinating the transport routes. The phrase "move the patients tonight" was repeated multiple times in the emergency communications folder. When cross-referenced with data seized at the Everett warehouse, agents confirmed that patients were not medical patients, but trafficking victims awaiting transfer. Other emails contained instructions on ship schedules, ferry routes, and optimal times to avoid random inspections, all of which matched the cargo route Whitlock had prepared for transfer before dawn. A file folder titled "Logistics" became the pivot point of the investigation. Inside was a detailed transport schedule for 9 victims, complete with assessments of their physical condition and notes on their expected utility value. This file indicated that Whitlock's role went far beyond complicity. He was directly involved in classifying, valuing, and arranging victims according to the cartel's demands. The presence of highly specialized medical forms further solidified the hypothesis that the basement operating room had been used for procedures to exploit human bodies under the guise of medical intervention. Finally, agents discovered a merchandise flow diagram and a transport timetable for 1 ton of heroin and 1.5 tons of methamphetamine and fentanyl. The route did not rely on traditional roadways but utilized the civilian ferry system, where large cargo volumes and high frequency of movement make inspection difficult. This is why Seattle was an ideal spot for the operation: multiple water routes, numerous port warehouses, and a civilian transport system that created a natural screen for industrial shipments. As the pieces were confirmed, federal forces realized they were facing not a single corrupt doctor. This was a complete criminal architecture, using medical language, legitimate paperwork, and hospital procedures to cover the flow of money, goods, and people. Each discovery added pressure to the operation, as the documents showed a large shipment and the 9 victims were being moved within the same timeframe. This was no longer an investigation. This was a situation demanding an immediate tactical response. The data extracted from Whitlock's encrypted system came together to form a picture more complete than any initial prediction. All time parameters, transport routes, and handover schedules pointed to the same location: a massive drug shipment and 9 victims being held at the Everett port area, set to be moved before daylight. With the tight linkage between Whitlock's operations and the cargo route, federal forces understood that any delay could cost lives. At the command center, the cargo flow map, thermal satellite data, port logs, and intercepted communications were spread across the screens. All evidence indicated that the cartel had built a dense defensive perimeter around the waterfront warehouse. Hotspots on the thermal imagery showed the presence of heavy weaponry and continuous guard teams. The analysis team determined this was not just a place to hold victims, it was a temporary base designed to fight back, buy time, and even be ready to destroy evidence if surrounded. Another report from the port surveillance team confirmed that a 3-vehicle convoy belonging to the cartel had been prepared, equipped with light armor capability and altered license plates to mislead law enforcement. The coordination between the warehouse and the convoy suggested the cartel had anticipated the scenario of being intercepted and had prepared multiple escape routes. This forced federal commanders to upgrade the operation classification to high-risk rescue, requiring the deepest level of interagency coordination. Immediately, forces were assembled: the FBI Hostage Rescue Team, Drug Enforcement Administration FAST, Immigration and Customs Enforcement HSI, along with federal tactical support units, were called into a unified formation. There was no time for speeches or briefings. Everyone involved understood they were at the intersection of 3 mission types: anti-drug, anti-human trafficking, and emergency rescue. As the unmarked convoy left the command center, the only sound in the cabins was the final equipment checks, ensuring that everyone entering the scene was prepared for a close quarters engagement. Scout reports indicated that the cartel might have suspected the federal presence and had adjusted the guard detail on the roof to monitor any strange vehicles. That meant the approach would not have the element of complete surprise, and the assault had to rely on speed, concentrated firepower, and the ability to gain immediate tactical advantage. As the convoy entered the outskirts of Everett, the signs of danger were clear. On the warehouse roof, figures moved in a guard formation, carrying scoped weapons. Below, near the container yard, multiple low-level positions were set up as firing points. Agents assessed this was a deliberate defensive structure, built to delay law enforcement long enough for the transport convoy to leave via a side route near the dock. A rapid tactical analysis was completed en route. The task force was divided into 3 prongs: one striking the eastern door using a pressure breach method, one intercepting the convoy if it departed early, and the final one looping around to the west to secure the victim holding areas in case the cartel attempted to destroy evidence. The interagency commander confirmed they could not wait for additional reinforcements. The victim's time and the convoy's position did not allow for hesitation. When the federal vehicles approached the warehouse, every small detail showed the cartel's level of organization far exceeded the norm. Whitlock's involvement in coordination was no longer a hypothesis but a clear reality. This was not a simple storage facility for contraband. This was a combat-structured transit hub, located in a highly populated area where no one would suspect it. The clock was counting down to the final minutes. As the forces deployed their formation, every element of the operation from intelligence input, defensive structure, hostage status, to escape risk, converged on the same conclusion. The raid had to begin immediately, and the level of internal resistance would be maximum. As the Special Operations team approached the warehouse area, the entire force clearly understood the nature of the mission. This was no longer a precautionary approach, but a close-quarters battle against a prepared opponent. The steel structure of the warehouse, the container stacks forming barricades, and the cartel's surveillance system showed the area was designed to sustain multi-directional engagement. This required tactics based on concentrated firepower, overwhelming speed, and the ability to capture key points in extremely short order. The opening move came from the Eastern Assault Team. The DEA Special Response Unit deployed a pressure breach charge, placed precisely on the structural weak point identified from the blueprints. When the detonator was triggered, the steel section burst open, creating a wide enough gap for two assault squads to enter. Immediately, dense gunfire was returned from inside. Agents took cover behind the container rows, using temporary concealment points to advance step by step to avoid being targeted. The cartel had set up firing ports along the metal walls, allowing them to maintain continuous fire without exposing themselves. This hindered the attacking force in the initial minutes. To neutralize this, FBI snipers from a helicopter position identified and took down the shooter on the warehouse roof, clearing the way for the ground assault to move deeper inside without top-down pressure. As the agents pushed into the heart of the warehouse, the interior structure confirmed the cartel's professionalism. Forklifts were tipped over to form shields. Industrial chemical barrels were stacked into thick walls, and pathways split into multiple branches designed to lure federal forces into disadvantageous positions. Several elevated positions were used to control the entire ground floor, forcing the attacking force to coordinate between sniping, close-quarters assault, and group division. In a narrow section of the warehouse, two cartel gunmen unexpectedly rushed out from behind a row of crates, forcing the HRT squad into close-range engagement. A ballistic shield was pushed forward, clearing the way for the two agents behind to advance. The distance was too close, making maneuver difficult, but the three-person formation maintained stability, suppressing the opponents with tactics of corner pushing, cutting off escape routes, and gaining the high ground within seconds. In the western sector, ICEHSI intercepted a cartel group trying to move the 9 victims to the rear of the warehouse. An automatic rifle was fired toward the approaching forces. Immediately, a K-9 unit surged forward, engaging the attacker, creating space for the agents behind to subdue the individual and ensure the victim group was not moved any further. This prong immediately secured the refrigerated truck the cartel had prepared, preventing any attempts to escape via the side route to the water. Outside the warehouse, the situation escalated faster than expected. 3 cartel trucks started their engines almost simultaneously. The first one rammed through the wire fence gate, providing a clear signal of the attempted breakout plan. The DEA response team immediately positioned an armored vehicle to block the escape route. When the cartel wheels spun fiercely, federal forces concentrated fire on the drivetrain, causing the vehicle to lose control and crash violently into a row of containers, shaking the entire yard. Searchlights from the tactical helicopter illuminated the entire cargo area. The strong light exposed the position of anyone trying to flee. The external forces quickly established a perimeter, blocking all exit points. Some gunmen abandoned their weapons, trying to hide in the shadows behind the crates, but were cornered by agents using movement tactics. While a portion of the external force locked down the perimeter, the HRT inside had reached the container with the code matching Whitlock's data. The industrial lock was cut with hydraulic equipment. When the door swung open, 9 victims were revealed in a state of exhaustion, hands tied, bodies suffering from hypothermia, but alive. The rescue team immediately moved them out of the danger zone, transferring them to a pre-established safe point. The final gunman surrendered his weapon, subdued without further casualties. The Everett port area was, by that point, completely under federal control. The battle ended, but the scale of the seized evidence along with the trail from the operational system Whitlock build showed this was only the tip of the criminal structure that had existed in the city's bright light for years. As the Everett area was secured, federal forces shifted all priority to the rescue and stabilization of the 9 victims removed from the container. Every person was in a state of depletion, with significantly reduced body temperature, insufficient clothing, and signs of prolonged transport. Tactical medical teams moved them onto specialized vehicles, conducting initial assessments to ensure no one fell into severe shock during transit out of the combat area. Parallel to the rescue operation, the strategic inventory team began the process of cataloging evidence, a task requiring absolute accuracy, not only for prosecution but also to determine the entire operational structure of the ring. Hundreds of pounds of heavy cargo containers were opened, and layers of preservation material were peeled back to reveal a volume of narcotics far exceeding all initial projections. A total of 2.5 tons of illegal substances, including 1 ton of heroin and 1.5 tons of methamphetamine and fentanyl, were sealed according to federal chain of custody procedures. The discovery of such a massive quantity of drugs proved that the Everett warehouse was not just a temporary storage point, but a regional hub, coordinating shipments via both road and water. Each package was marked with symbols of cartels operating in the southern border region, showing that Whitlock was not an inexperienced collaborator, but a person who played a bridging role between international transport routes and the domestic distribution network. In addition to the narcotics, federal forces seized 324 weapons of various types, from handguns with erased serial numbers, short-barreled rifles modified to increase rate of fire, to parts kits still in boxes. All were packaged to professional contraband transport standards. The presence of multiple weapon variants similar to those used in violence on the West Coast suggested that Whitlock's network was not just transporting goods but also supplying other criminal groups in the area. The financial haul was also staggering. $52 million in cash, certified gold, and offline bank documents were found in hidden compartments, safes, and transport crates. This was not momentary circulating cash but the operational fund used to sustain the activities, pay for protection, transport, and bribes. When financial specialists began cross-referencing this with Whitlock's records, the cash flows aligned almost perfectly with the previously discovered shell companies. But the most critical value of the seized evidence was not the quantity of drugs or weapons, but the 9 lives rescued. Data seized in the logistics file showed they had been categorized by health status, noted utility value, and movement schedule. The fact that they were alive when federal forces raided proved that the decision to launch the operation immediately was entirely correct. Had the assault team been a few hours slower, they would likely have been moved by the convoy or processed according to the evidence-cutting model the cartel had used in other states. After the area was secured, a special transport route was implemented to move all victims to the University of Washington Medical Center. Doctors there were instructed to work independently, unconnected to any individuals who might have been involved in the protection structure within the city's health system. This procedure was aimed at avoiding any risk of interference from links still under investigation. Meanwhile, federal legal teams drafted provisional dockets at the scene. Every package, every weapon, every financial document was coded with an evidence number, preparing for the largest wave of prosecutions in the operation. In just a few hours, the list of individuals to be prosecuted expanded to a level never before seen in a case involving the medical field. 31 people were identified with sufficient elements for prosecution, including cartel gunmen, transport workers, financial brokers, and several public officials previously thought to be unrelated. What took place in Everett marked a turning point in the entire investigation. There was no longer any doubt about Whitlock's central role in the network. The volume of seized evidence, the scale of operation, and the defensive preparation at the warehouse confirmed he was not an outsider observer, but the architect of a criminal system hidden beneath the veneer of the medical profession. The battle closed, but its consequence opened up a pressing question. How could a hospital director build and operate a network of this scale without detection for so many years? As federal forces completed securing the Everett area and began aggregating data, the investigative focus immediately shifted back to Seattle. The electronic devices, financial records, and medical files seized from Whitlock's home were subjected to deep analysis. In just a few hours, a new pattern emerged, more complex than any previous scenario. Whitlock was not operating alone. He had built a ring of protection within the city's public and health systems positions in which the public placed absolute trust. The cash flow from the 23 shell companies was cross-referenced with public audit records, port entry, exit logs, medical inspection approvals, and transactions between hospital transport units. The results showed an unusual overlap. Expenditures were recorded as expert consultation, equipment verification contracts, patient coordination stipends, community sponsorship. When the financial codes were delayered, all led to individuals with authority in the local administrative system. The first name on the list was a deputy police chief who received regular payments under the pretense of hospital infrastructure security. Each payment was just small enough not to draw attention, but the total over 5 years reached a significant sum. When cross-referenced with ferry route entry data, the random inspection slips he had approved aligned almost perfectly with the times the cartel's large shipments were moved into Seattle. Next was a city medical inspector, responsible for approving the transport records for equipment and supplies, Whitlock claimed. Every time the cartel's cargo docked, the standard approved inspection record appeared, regardless of volume, type or time. Analysis showed this person had become a crucial protective link, ensuring all shipments were legitimized by specialized paperwork without actual physical inspection. A port employee also appeared on the list. This individual signed for the clearance of multiple refrigerated containers without conducting the mandatory scanning. His bypassing of the inspection not only cleared the way for the cartel to transport victims but also shielded the entry of weapons and narcotics into the city. These approval signatures increased sharply during the period. Whitlock expanded the scale of his operation. Most notably was the appearance of a surgeon from a neighboring hospital. Encrypted messages between the two showed them discussing special case transfers, urgent tissue preservation, support after procedure. Accompanying documents showed this person had participated in processing several victims categorized by organ value data that matched the logistics files found in the basement. This indicated the network did not stop at transport but also intervened in the medical process to maximize profit from human bodies. Within 72 hours, federal forces identified 20 individuals in the public and health systems who had received money or provided tacit support to Whitlock. Each held a position of influence: police, inspector, port official, doctor, administrator. They did not act overtly, but they were the links that allowed the cartel to operate smoothly for years without detection. When this information was internally released, city agencies went into extreme tension. Multiple emergency meetings were convened at administrative offices, and hospital directors demanded a review of all contracts and agreements signed during Whitlock's tenure. The Port of Seattle was forced to halt operations on certain routes to audit the years-long chain of approvals. Police units had to launch internal affairs investigations to verify those involved. In the community, as the news leaked out, outrage spread. Many had considered Whitlock a symbol of the city's healthcare system. He had appeared on stage to award scholarships, endowed charitable funds for medical schools, and spoken about the power of human compassion. When the truth was unveiled, the shock was not just the crime, but the fact that he had exploited the trust of the very people relying on the medical profession. The protection system Whitlock built was not a collection of disconnected actions. It was designed as a buffer, each person staying silent at the right time, signing approval on the right day, and ignoring the right detail to ensure the gears of the pipeline ran smoothly. And the most horrifying thing was that the entire structure lay right in the heart of the agencies responsible for protecting the community. As the scale of the truth expanded, federal forces understood that arresting Whitlock and dismantling the Everett warehouse was only half the mission. The remaining part, difficult and sensitive, was to dissect the entire system that had sheltered him through years of operation. When Whitlock's operational map was fully completed before the federal forces, the entire operation shifted to the final phase, dismantling the years-long protective system within Seattle. Data from Everett, financial forensics results, medical records, and abnormal expenditures became the foundation for the federal prosecution team to build the largest indictment in the region in the past decade. With the inventory process at Everett complete, the investigative teams expanded the list of those to be charged. A total of 31 individuals were identified with sufficient elements for prosecution, including cartel gunmen, transport workers, financial brokers, along with multiple individuals belonging to the public system who held positions considered above suspicion. All were linked by cash flow, approval signatures, internal communication codes, and physical evidence that matched the cartel's transport schedule hour by hour. Whitlock alone faced a nearly uncountable list of charges: large-scale drug trafficking, human trafficking, money laundering, illegal organ transport, public corruption, and exploiting medical office to conceal criminal activity. When federal agents escorted him to the federal courthouse, the area outside was filled with Seattle residents, people who had once trusted, honored, and viewed him as a moral example for the medical profession. Many older residents stood silent, unable to believe what was unfolding. Whitlock had awarded scholarships to poor students, spoken at charity fundraisers, and represented the hospital in community programs. But the exposed truth showed that those actions were merely a facade designed to mask a criminal network operating on the very trust he had cultivated. Inside the city, administrative agencies entered a crisis phase. The hospital board launched a comprehensive review of every contract, exchange program, equipment sponsorship, and international affiliation during Whitlock's tenure. Contracts once thought harmless were pulled back to the audit table, line by line, cross-referenced with financial records to find any detail that had been warped to serve the pipeline. The Port of Seattle was forced to close several areas to re-audit all clearance procedures. Employees responsible for signing off on critical shipments were temporarily suspended pending investigation. The city health department also held multiple internal meetings, reviewing every program Whitlock had helped establish. No one dared to confirm the full extent of this corruption. At the state level, lawmakers demanded an emergency hearing on oversight gaps in the medical, financial, and transport systems. The questions were posed repeatedly. How could a hospital director operate a criminal ring for years without detection? Why did the auditing process not flag the abnormal cash flow? Who ignored the warnings? And most importantly, what guarantees there isn't a second Whitlock? But amidst the institutional collapse, another reality also emerged. The law enforcement system worked when it needed to. Federal forces tracked every document, every cash flow, every communication link. Tactical teams risked their lives to rescue 9 people who would have otherwise become anonymous numbers in a cold container. Analysts connected every piece, transforming a small raid in North Seattle into a comprehensive map of a criminal ring based on medical authority. Whitlock was jailed pending trial. The courtroom where he once stood to speak in educational programs was now empty, his nameplate intact but his honor erased. That room became the city's new symbol, a symbol that crime doesn't always come from the darkness or invisible corners. Sometimes it comes from the brightest place, from the most trusted people, and from positions that were thought to be beyond suspicion. Seattle was forced to confront the harsh lesson. Danger is not always external. Sometimes it grows right within the agencies tasked with protecting the community. But the very act of exposing that truth, however painful, is the foundation for the city to begin the process of restoring trust, tightening oversight, and rebuilding what was destroyed by years of exploitation.